out there specifically for a mission, it makes me uncomfortable.
Can I make one comment on the politics of it? Because Jonathan Martin, our friend who writes at Politico, notes President Trump could have this week or last week gone out and said, hey, look at how much crime has dropped in D.C. This is all because of me. But instead of that, he's seizing on this one crime.
But that's dishonest to say that it's.
I'm telling you what Jonathan Martin is saying here.
We're kind of missing a big part of the story in what happened to that DOJ staffer. There was literally a patrol car that saw everything happen, and that didn't prevent the crime from happening, which I think is also very strange, right?
And the only reason he didn't get injured any worse is because the cops happened to be there. I think they arrested 2 out of 10 people.
They did, yeah.
But if you had more police on the street who were available to keep an eye on things, maybe some of these things would not escalate into as violent of a situation as they could be. But the guy was still very seriously injured, despite the fact that the cops were there.
Too, I would bet if you ask the rank and file right now, in the military we call these guys combat multipliers. You're adding something to the fray that only helps those who are already there doing the fight. You're going to ask the rank and file blue now, and I guarantee you the rank and file members of the blue are asking for more help, and they're glad to have more on the street. So you're saying that a force multiplier, the term that you're talking about, a force multiplier, that should be added to the American streets where American citizens are. We're not talking about operations overseas in a foreign country with specific the term still
tactical.
Applies.
Right. So
the term still
what I'm saying is, when the force gets multiplied,
you're assisting those on the streets with doing their job. And you
guys talk about escalation. We could talk about some escalations. We could talk about escalations in the case of Eric Garner.
I think you're going to have a de-escalation.
In the case of George
I think you're going to have a de-escalation because you have more people on the streets bringing it to them. No, you're going to wind up having a de-escalation right now because there's less capability of the crime to take place with more troops on the street.
I would like to see a more comprehensive approach to this, right? These are teenagers. I don't want their skulls broken in by police. Right. I mean, okay, if we need to enforce the law a little better, sure, you can make an argument for that. But let's keep these teenagers busy, right? Like, let's invest in these communities, give these kids something positive to focus on. You know, there's never any focus on that, which I think is strange.
You said you were going to be super pro-law enforcement tonight. What about the cops who were on the other side of this man now being employed by the Justice Department on tape saying, kill them, kill them? The rank and file that you just talked about there. You know, what do you think?
I think it's terrific that the DOJ has now hired a guy who was yelling about killing cops.
Right.
Period. I think that's an outrage. I think that is a scandal, in my view. I think it ought to be viewed as a scandal that this guy is now working in the DOJ, whether he's convicted or not convicted. He's on tape right there talking about killing cops. And I speak this way about people on the left who talk about killing cops. I talk about people on the right. You got to be consistent, though. If you're going to say you're pro-law enforcement, you got to say what that guy's doing is wrong, and he ought not to be in the Department of Justice.
Well, can I ask you a question to that point? Would you say that the President of the United States is pro-law enforcement? Because it seemed to me that he pardoned the people.
Right. So I would tell you that I think he is selectively pro-law enforcement. I think
then you're not pro-law enforcement at all.
Well, look, you can make that argument, and I've been very critical of the president about the pardons on January 6th. I think they're very hard to justify. Period.
Yeah, Trump's not very consistent.
Not just more than hard to justify, impossible to justify.
Phil, you said rank and file. How do you think the rank and file should feel about this guy on tape saying kill the Kim? Now, he says he was caught up in anger. It was just those were just angry words. He didn't really want to kill them. But do you think the rank and file cares about that?
Yeah, I think they should. I think they absolutely should. And I agree. I mean, if that was his voice saying those things and he's now working for the DOJ.
He admits to saying it was his voice.
Okay, well then great. The DOJ needs to re-examine their hiring policies. But I don't think we can paint the broad brush on what's happening on the streets of D.C. right now.
It's a separate issue. I'm just saying.
Yeah. But the reality is, yes. I mean, if that occurred and then he was hired to be, I'm not saying it didn't. I'm just saying if indeed that occurred over here, then why is he working over here? I can't explain that. Mm-hmm. I can't give that a buy.
I can explain it because President Trump has he gains politically from empowering people.
Sitting there interviewing the man for the job.
Empowering people that were involved in January 6th.
You make it sound like the HR director is President Trump.
I will say this.
It relates to your other topic about the FBI and about the people who are getting now fired in the FBI because they either wouldn't give the names of all the people who worked on the January 6th cases. I mean, remember, when you are in law enforcement, the vast majority of people in law enforcement do not pick the cases they work on. If you want to talk about the person at the top, okay. Just about everyone else works on the cases they're assigned to work on. Mm-hmm. And we have now seen mass firings of anyone, even support staff, who touched the January 6th case. That, too, is an outrage because that's not pro-law enforcement either.
Again, I'll just leave you with this. The Justice Department says that Jared Wise is a valued member